Greetings, gardeners. Thanksgiving is at hand. There are some foods that we can grow in our garden that are excellent to eat right next to that turkey. My favorite vegetable on Thanksgiving is the sweet potato. I love sweet potatoes. Now, it's possible that I have met people in this world who the only sweet potato they ever ate was that yucky little thing that came out of the can, you know, and then people throw marshmallows all over them and bake them in the oven. And if that's the only sweet potatoes you've ever had, well, truly I feel sorry for you, and I'm hoping for a brighter future in your culinary experience. But sweet potatoes come in many different varieties. Some are tastier than others. The little guy here I just swam through the camera lens originates as an organic from the Trader Joe's store. It was purchased by me now for years. There's one farmer that produces this crop for him, and I really don't even know what we call this variety. I'm not sure. It's got a fairly red skin. It's a pretty deep orange on the inside. It looks a little bit like some of them I've seen maybe labeled as gem or something. Anyway, the variety isn't that important. The reason I got excited about this little guy is because the flavor is incredible. This sweet potato is so delicious, all right? Now, part of this, of course, is the growing conditions. The farmer grows them organically. They're really outstanding, just really, really good potatoes. Of course, the other part of it would be the variety, no doubt, that he's using. So I decided I was going to bring them into my own garden here in California, in Fremont. With the drought in California this year, I decided that I would spend more time focusing on sweet potatoes. I sort of left them behind for a few years because the last time I did this, I saw real nice stumps of potatoes sticking out of my hills, but when I harvested in fall, a gopher had gone under the entire row and he'd eaten everything. I was so angry that I stopped raising sweet potatoes for a while. Well, the drought brought my interest back because this crop does take dry weather. The potatoes were planted at the edge of my garden where there isn't a lot of water, and we have a lot of tree roots over here because it's adjacent to my orchard. And so the potatoes really had tree roots underneath them pulling water constantly. So it was really a very dry spot. But with Thanksgiving at hand, I went to cure the skins on my potatoes, and I dug a hill of them up this morning, and boy, was I surprised. Yeah, it was pretty neat. Here, check it out. Right there is just one hill of the sweet potatoes that I planted this last spring. I grew them by taking the cut ends of sweet potatoes from the market that were sprouting, planted them in little pots in my greenhouse, raised up a few slips from them, then brought them out here and put down a little organic fertilizer, and then just transplanted them in sight. They got a little bit of water. I didn't do too much for them. Really, it's a very maintenance-free crop as long as the gophers don't eat them from below. And I'm pleased with what I came up with here, considering just how much of a drought we have and how much trouble I've been having raising a lot of vegetables this year. And these are reasonably good-sized sweet potatoes. The originals from the farm are not a lot bigger than that. This is not a great big variety. Anyway, that's a pretty good-sized pile of sweet potatoes for one plant. Laying next to it there, you see that I've got the vines still pulled out of the ground with some roots on the end. So one of the things that I would like to show you now is how I'm going to start next year's sweet potatoes. Here we are inside Bill's greenhouse. Now, I just harvested a hill of sweet potatoes. Now, if I was to go ahead and harvest all my sweet potatoes and eat all my sweet potatoes and not save anything for propagation, well, I'd lose the variety. In order to have sweet potato slips or plants for next year, I'm going to go ahead and take some of the material from this fall and I'm going to put it in pots in the greenhouse over here. Now, the sweet potato will propagate from a whole wide variety of different portions of the plant. I mean, you can take little reject tubers like that. They work. It'll come sprouting out of the end over here if you put it in a pot. You get a plant from that. A little slower, but that works. The crowns from these plants, right here, see, right there, this propagates like crazy. You can see there's roots on it already. I'll just prune this back and we'll stick that into a flower pot. But If we look up and down the stems on the plants, what we also find is that there are small root hairs that have been forming right here, see, going along the stems. Now these are, again, real easy cuttings. If I cut this off and stick it in a pot with that bit of root on the end, it's going to take off, it's going to grow. So these are going to be green leafy cuttings here. So let's start right off with the easiest piece to make a plant out of, all right? Right here I have the crown, right? That's where it went into the ground this last year. I'm going to shear it off right here, just below the first root hairs. See? All right, then I'm going to come into the plant, and I'm going to take this big stem off right here, and I'm going to take off, let's see here, all right, I got two crowns here, so I can make two plants out of this. It's going to work out pretty well. All right, so take that off. You see, I cut this stem off. That stem doesn't really have any root hairs or anything on it, so I'm just going to put that in the compost heap. Right here, I've got some nice stemage, and there we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now you want to make sure when you're doing this, take a look at your leaves and stuff and make sure you don't have any bugs or something on here. I'm trimming the foliage back to a minimum, as you can see. So I'm getting rid of most of the leaves, saving just that much at the end, okay? So here we have a very nice little sweet potato slip, ready to rock and roll. Here I have my little plant. I'm going to insert it down inside a 4-inch pot. Put the roots down and the top up, and add enough soil around it to get it to stay put. As soon as late winter, early spring comes, the cuttings will take off, start growing like crazy. I want to move back out to the garden so I can keep this variety going. There we go. Another nice little slip. It's got roots on the bottom, got a good collar, got leaves coming up off the top here. This one will do just fine. So I'm going to dump a little bit of the soil out of the pot so I can get these roots down here and kind of lay them out nicely. Spread them rather than pack them into a hole. Works better that way. There we go. Then I also have some shoots that still have fairly vigorous tips on them, but no roots. So I'm going to take these, and cut them back, and I'm going to stuff some of them into these flower pots here and see if we can get them to root. They should. So I'm taking off extra leaves, leaving just enough right out there at the tip. Some of these are going to fall off anyway. I'll stick them down in pots here like this. Okay, and then I have also a few small spuds. Bottom end, root end here. See, going downward. Top end over here towards the plant. This end tends to sprout shoots better than the other end does, and so we put that up. I'm going to stick it up in the sun just like that so the light hits it and make it sprout. There we have it. Here I have tip shoots, vigorous, green, had no roots. Alright. Right here I had crowns that had some shoots on them and also had the base of the plant with roots. Right over here I have mid-stem cuttings that were taken where roots had formed on the stems and there's still some foliage. Otherwise over here I have just plain old sweet potatoes planted in pots. Chances are most of this is all going to take. Any of this section of a potato will grow under the right conditions. So I'm overwintering these out here in the greenhouse, so I have plants for next spring. I'm better off that I start my plants now and just let them go through the winter than I am trying to hold the sweet potatoes all winter. I have two problems with that. One is spoilage and sprouting, and the other one is I love sweet potatoes and I might eat up all of my propagation stock if I take them in the house. So I've taken parts of them and left them out here in the greenhouse to keep them away from my mouth and hands. So there's a basic propagation on sweet potatoes. If you find a good one in the market that you love the taste of, if it doesn't appear to have diseases, I found it's usually acceptable to cut the tip ends off where the buds will form. The biggest problem you're going to have with taking sweet potatoes from the market and bringing them into the garden is if you're buying the conventionally grown ones. It's not unusual that they'll use treatments on those to keep the sprouts from forming. Okay. Ordinarily on the organic ones, those materials have not been used, and organic sweet potatoes usually sprout pretty nicely. I don't know if you did this in your grade school classes, but I know we took a sweet potato, stuck it into a glass with toothpicks and some water underneath, and I grew up thinking that you had to have toothpicks and a water glass to grow a sweet potato plant, but that isn't true. Fact is, though, that any grade school kid can propagate these, okay? And so like I'm showing you, almost any piece of this plant under the right conditions will turn back into a sweet potato plant. You can use it the next year. Alrighty, well, have a happy Thanksgiving. Eat more sweet potatoes. Don't eat the ones out of the can, okay? And if they're good sweet potatoes, you don't need the marshmallows or the brown sugar either. Really, they are so good when they're well grown.